Hello and welcome to something a bit sketchy on the edge. Yes, I don't know, you will once again have already seen the title of the video. So what we have here is the CRKT Sketch, a Burnley design knife. That is Lucas Burnley, a professional knife maker operating from his shop in Orleans, Massachusetts. Started making knives, or high-end folding knives and fixed blade knives, in 2003. And every one of his signature knives, the custom knives, are hand built by Lucas and available in extremely limited numbers. So thankfully, we get production versions of his knives like this, so that mere mortals like myself can get our hands on his design knives. And he's made done production projects with Bokeh, CRKT, and MKM. Right, so now with that little bit of a background, I'm going to be doing the usual materials, dimensions, and weight, and then dive into design and attributes of this unusual but very good-looking knife. Right, let's get cracking. So we've got, it is a CRKT, it is one of the budget knives, so we've got a budget blade steel on this. We've got 8CR14 MOV in this case. The handle is 2CR13, or stainless steel, to you and I. The clip is stainless steel. These screws and pivot cap, that's all stainless steel. And then the pivot assembly, unfortunately, we've got Teflon or nylon washers inside there. So, yeah, a bit of a pity that. But anyway, it depends on how you feel about that material on a washer. So, dimensions and weight. We've got a blade length of 73.51 millimeters, and that's 2.89 inches. Blade thickness of 3.2 inches, and that is 3.2 millimeters, I should say, and that's 0.12 inches. Now, interesting, on CRKT's website, they've got the blade thickness at 2.9 mils and 0.11 inches. Now, once again, I've checked that on my own vernier caliper, and their measurements quite a bit off. So, like I say, my measurement is 3.2 mils and 0.12 inches. Handle thickness is 10.4 millimeters, and that's 0.41 inches. Close length of the knife is 100.08 to be precise millimeters, or 10 centimeters, I suppose, close enough, and that's 3.94 inches. And then overall length of the knife is 169.88 millimeters, and that's 6.69 inches. And that's groaning that you heard. I just at that moment glanced at my notes and noticed that I did not write down stated weights from CRKT. Never mind. The scale to the rescue. Right, let's get that on. And what are we on? We're on grams, and let's have a look at that. So it is 103 grams. And that in ounces, 3.7 ounces. So not a light knife for the size of it, but once again, it's one of those knives that feels right to me. I've mentioned many times before, I like a little bit of heft to a knife, and for a knife this size, that does to me feel like a very, very nice and sort of solid weight. It gives you that sense of solidity to the knife. Right, so that's all the hard facts and figures out of the way. Let's look at design and attributes. And so, as I mentioned just now, a slightly unusual looking knife, to me anyway, but a very, very good looking knife. And interestingly enough, it does remind me, when I first saw the knife, and I first saw the knife that way around, I actually thought, I made the assumption that this was a Vox design knife. And, there were two things. Vox has obviously done a couple of collaborations with CRKT, but it also had that sort of Jesper Voxness look about it, to my eye anyway, and it's probably because of the pillar. There's a similarity in sort of overall feel between this and the CRKT pillar, which is a Vox design knife, albeit that the pillar has more of a distinctive sheep's foot blade perhaps, and it's got a forward finger choil as well. But there you go. I think it does have a little bit of a almost family resemblance to that knife, and perhaps even to a few other Vox designed knives. Now, I mentioned there blade shape, sheep's foot. However, CRKT described this as a K-tip, which is sort of a reverse Tanto style knife based on the Kiritsky, Kiritsky. I think that's how if you see the way that it's written, it's Kiritsuke, but it apparently is in Japanese pronounced Kiritsky style of knife, and that is I've given it away, a Japanese style of knife, and it's sort of an all-purpose type knife. And if you see any pictures of those, you'll see that it has a similar-ish type of shape. But yeah, once again, I would describe this as a sheep's foot. I think for all intents and purposes, that's a sheep's foot style blade. Right, let's keep going, shall we? Hollow grind on that. And a satin finish to the blade, so that also very, very neatly done, good looking when the light catches that hollow grind, and the general shape of the blade, good looking as well. The edge on this specific one that I've got, leaves something to be desired. The edge on the one side, let's try to get the light at the right angle. You can see that the edge on that side, especially towards the tip of the blade, considerably wider than on the other side. And sharp-ish out of the box. So not one of the best CRKT edges I've seen on a knife. You've obviously seen the thumb hole, that sort of tablet-shaped thumb hole, tablet as in a pull, not the device that you use as a computer. Right. So, see what I mean? The edge of that little hole, really neatly done as well. It's got a lovely little beveled edge around that. And then you can see a swedge on the spine of the blade, just forward of that hole, and that stretches to the drop of the blade. The rest of the spine behind that swedge squared off, and then you've got the jimping at the back of the blade right towards the handle. That edge, I didn't mention, has a nicely sized sharpening choil behind it. So in the case of this specific knife, it'll be relatively easy to neaten up and fix up that edge. But I suppose if you get one with a good edge, then it'll be there just to keep it neat, I suppose. Right. Now, the rest of the shape of the blade, nicely sort of balanced look. You can see most of the weight in terms of the size of it sits in the handle, but it sort of flows, the blade sort of flows very neatly onto that handle, and you can see the drop. There's sort of a drop to the handle at that point, and then a further drop at the back of the handle. And that sort of general shape, that drop and that sort of sharpened edge almost reflects, mirrors the blade. Let's try not to cut myself on camera. But it sort of reflects the shape of the blade on the other end. So that does look very, very good. The finish to that handle, we've got a stonewash. That is really very nicely done, a grey stonewash, but it's incredibly, incredibly smooth. There's absolutely no texture or grip on that at all. Hardware, you can see the pivot cap black with the little green surround on that, and that looks very good, little pop of color on that. And then we've got that same little pop of color on the back spacer. In the back spacer, you can see where the handle cuts back. In that back spacer, we've got the little lanyard hole in there as well. So all in all, aesthetically, nice little design touches, and it does look very, very good. The edge of that handle, very, very slightly rounded. It's pretty square on the edge, just slightly rounded so that it's not sharp. But the knife does feel very, very good in hand. The general ergos on the knife do feel good, even though it doesn't have anything to provide that extra bit of grip. So that in my medium-sized hands, I've mentioned in other reviews that I wear a large glove. You can see how I fit onto that. with my little finger really right at the back of the handle. You can choke up on this knife quite comfortably, even though there isn't a big forward finger choil on the blade. And that's because of that sort of flat area on the handle right there. So get your forefinger onto that, and that's how you can choke up, as I say, very, very comfortably on the knife. And then either way that you hold it, your finger is going to fall onto that jimping on the spine of the blade, and that jimping, very, very grippy. So as I say it again, very, very good ergos. It looks, it feels, I should say, like a very, very good user. That handle, I just mentioned that. So on the inside of that, try to get a bit of reflection in there, quite a bit of material removed. So quite a bit of that stainless steel has been milled away from the handle on both sides. So both on the show side and the lock side. And that obviously just to save a little bit of weight on the knife. What have I not mentioned? So it is a frame lock, pretty much standard fare there. We don't need the stainless steel insert to create the stainless steel on stainless steel lockup, because the handle is stainless steel anyway. But we do have the little insert as the over travel stop, and you can see the little torque screw for that as well. Nicely the way the relief cut is done on that lock, where the lock flexes as well. You can sort of see through the gap there, little arched, three sort of little arched cutaways into that. So that's also very neatly done and very attractive. Pocket clip, we've got tip up, right hand only, and definitely not deep carry. You can picture that in your pocket. You're going to see the clip and quite a bit of that knife sticking out of your pocket. Space behind there, pretty good, nice and springy. And the clip itself is countersunk. The screws aren't, so yeah, there you get a sense of the space behind that clip. Right, what else? I did want to mention something on that hole, the design of the hole and the way that it's sort of cut into that handle. Made me think of another knife as well. I've actually brought that knife on, and that's the Serge Panchenko design knife, the little Bokeh that I've got, and that is the Bokeh Serge. And you can see that that is treated the same way. You can see that there, just a bigger thumb hole, but also sort of that tablet shape and how that cuts into the handle. And the sketch done very, very much the same way. And they've done the same treatment on the other side as well. Sort of, you know, we don't care about lefties all that much, because on the lock side, you can see quite a bit of that hole is covered by the lock. Now, I say that it's not considering lefties. And by the way, if you hear the footprints in the back there, that is my boy, Cooper, the Bull Terrier. He's decided that he wants something, as he normally does while I am busy filming. It seems to be okay. Right, where was I? So on the lock side, it's that hole, as I mentioned, covered up a little bit. But I say, not considering lefties, but in one sense, I suppose it does. And that is if you want to middle finger flick the knife, because as a right-hander, you get very little space to get your middle finger in there, and you can, on those Teflon washers, it doesn't make it very easy, but you can get your finger in there, and with a little bit of a wrist action, you can middle finger flick the knife out. And that actually would work better if you were a lefty. What is it with me and lefties and lefties tonight? So, but you can see as a lefty, to get your middle finger in there would be far easier. And that's actually the same on this Bokeh as well. It's the same scenario, but you know, you can get your finger in there and you can spidey flick it out. A little bit better to spidey flick the Bokeh out, because it's got a stronger detent. And so while I'm speaking about that, the detent on the Sketch is not the best detent. It's quite a weak detent, and that obviously counts against you when you're trying to get the middle finger flick going. And that's why you sort of have to do that wrist action between that and the Teflon washers. Right, what else? What have I not spoken about? I didn't speak about the markings on the blade. So there you can see the name of the blade, Sketch and Burnley Design. We've got a little product code on the blade on that side. And then as per usual on a CRKT, we've got CRKT etched onto the blade on the other side. I think that pretty much covers off everything that I wanted to speak about in terms of design and ergos on the knife. So let me do what I normally do at this point, and that's just give my gratitude to Blades and Triggers, another knife that has been provided by them. I do appreciate their ongoing support of the channel, so check this and other CRKT knives and other brands of knives and other tactical goodies on their website, and that is BNT Online. And what does that leave me to do? As always, size comparisons. So, brought another little CRKT knife out. Also well, as CRKTs typically are, they work with designers, and this is the Oaks designed Shahalem. Give you a sense of that in terms of size, pretty similarly sized. That also, by the way, has the washers, and I ended up buying it anyway because I do like the look of that knife, and it was dirt cheap. And who knows, maybe I'll do the same on this knife as well, because it is an attractive looking knife. Anyway, we're looking at size comparisons. Right, let's get back to what I was doing. There's that. Then this, and I mentioned Jesper Voxnes, Vox Design, so let's bring that on, and that is the Fox Suru. Give you a little bit of a look of that as well in terms of size. And then why not bring on that Serge Panchenko designed knife. Let's see if I can get a first time. There we go, middle finger flick on that. Give you a sense of those two. Right, and then I will use the usual knives that I use because they've been out, well, not necessarily out for so long, but because they're found in the wild so often, and most people will know those knives. They are pretty popular, and the first one is the Spyderco PM3, the smaller version. Give you some scale there. And then the Spyderco Manix 2. Give you some scale on that. And then the last knife that I will bring in here is this one, another knife. In this case, it has been out for a very long time, and if you like knives, you should know that knife. And yes, I always do say it. That is the Benchmade Mini Barrage. Right, and you know what? This other knife is still on my desk from the last review that I did. So let me pull this on as well. I think relatively similarly sized knives. And this is the, what is it? It is the Zero Tolerance 0900, the Les George design. Let's have a look at those two. Yeah, they are relatively similarly sized, those two as well. Right, so summary of my thoughts on the knife. A good looking knife, nice design, great ergos, nice finishes to the knife, nice attention to detail in terms of those little pops of color and the little design flair on it. Some of the quality of fit and finish leaves something to be desired. Well, I shouldn't say, it's not anywhere else except on the edge. So maybe that's unfair. Definitely the edge on this one leaves something to be desired. Unfortunately, Teflon, CRKT, please move away from the Teflon. Please put phosphor bronze washers on your knives. You know, a couple of, I'm going to say extra rand, but a couple of extra dollars maybe would just make it, to me, so much more attractive, and surely it would make it a better proposition and something that'll maybe last a little bit longer as well. Anyway, I think most people who like knives feel that way. But as for the rest of it, as I said, an attractive design knife, very, very good price point. It is a CRKT. They do tend to make the budget knives, budget price point. This is one of the sort of more budget-y in terms of price point of the CRKT knives. And generally pretty good. The blade centering on this one, quite nice. So yeah, there it is. You know, if you looking for a budget knife, you like a sort of sheep's foot design knife, and looking for something a little bit smaller and maybe slightly unusual, check this out. I think the big challenge for CRKT at the moment is the likes of QSP, knives like that are producing stuff that has bearings or bronze or copper washers at the same price point, and that's why it's so difficult to sometimes recommend knives like CRKT and Kershaw at the moment, because the competition is stiff and the competition is making use of quite often better materials. And I know those knives are out of China, but these probably are as well. That is. And that is it, guys. That's all I have for you on this knife, the CRKT Sketch, Lucas Burnley designed knife. So all that's really left for me to do is to thank you once again for joining me. Always really do appreciate it when you do, and would equally appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified every time I release a new video, because I really would love you to join me more often. And again, if you did enjoy the video, please do give it a like, a thumbs up, or like, or whatever you want to call it, because it does help with the algorithms. And other than that, you go well, and God bless.